Hi everyone, this is José Manuel Valero speaking from Spain. Thank you very much for your attention and joining this communication, and of course, thank you also to the organizers of the International Conference on Education in March 2024. What about the contents of my presentation? The effects of the pandemic have affected and continue to affect education methods every day. The purpose of my presentation is to share with all of you what we learn about the response to COVID-19 and the results of my studies and investigations during and after the pandemic, provided a basis for reflection about the pros and cons of teaching and learning modalities in higher education. The current situation demands that we continue to rethink what is the best methodology for teaching so that the education of students is not affected in any way. So, speaking about that, I'm going to subdivide my presentation in three main points. First, effects of COVID on university students' education performance in classrooms. Second, teaching and learning modalities in higher education during and post the pandemic. And the last one, the conclusions. So, first, effects of COVID-19 on university students' education performance in classroom. As a result of the situation caused by the state of alarm driven by COVID-19, the educational system has been forced to adapt to the new capacity requirements and in many cases cease their usual activity. The Community of Madrid, Spain, forces the closure of educational centers on March in 2020. This confinement was extended until June 21, 2020. Thus, the longest state of alarm in the history of Spain ended after 3 months of confinement to stop the spread of COVID-19 and the so-called new normal began. Movement restrictions between the Spanish provinces ended and coexistence with the virus began. From March to September 2020, due to the declaration of a state of alarm by the national government, the educative centers could not be opened, and they had to optimally adapt to this fact. Each educational center had to base its teaching on the online mode and adapt teachers and students to this new reality. Video conferencing software was used to avoid social disconnection. The pandemic revealed the shortcomings of educational institutions, mainly about infrastructures and the training of teachers in ICT tools. However, it also meant improvements. The teacher was trained in new online methodologies and showed interest in learning new teaching tools in the face of the new reality and challenges that arose. What about my second point in teaching and learning modalities in higher education during and post the pandemic? As of September 2020, Spanish universities have used the teaching methods detailed in the following sections. First, the presence learning. Presence learning consists of both the students and the teachers sharing the same physical classroom. This type of teaching methodology could not be applied from March to September 2020 due to the declaration of a state of alarm by the government of the nation. However, as of September 2020, this teaching modality became eligible and the educational centers were reopened. Second, distance education. Distance education, also known as online learning, is a type of education developed using technology that allows students to attend classes for remote locations. The non-face-to-face teaching model is becoming increasingly popular in the field of higher education. Distance education is characterized by having an existing organizational infrastructure which allows the educational objectives of online learning to be developed. we must not confuse this type of teachings, distance education, with emergency remote education. In exceptional situations that impede the normal functioning of institutions and face-to-face educational centers, teachers may be forced to quickly adapt their pedagogical activity to a virtual environment. This is known here as emergency non-face-to-face teaching. Third, blended learning. This model is based on a combination of classroom education and online education in various forms. First, hybrid learning assumes that a half of the students in a class attending the classrooms and the other half follow the class from home, partially online and partially face-to-face. The use of hybrid flexible instructional methodologies, HyFlex, is relatively recent in higher education. So from September 2020, in Spanish universities that follow this methodology, groups of face-to-face students and online students alternated to achieve social distance without having to modify the structure of the classrooms. Mirror rooms. With the accumulated incidence of COVID-19, one of the options used in Spanish university education was the so-called mirror rooms, which allows face-to-face classes but at a safe distance, ensuring a distance of at least 1.5 meters between the chairs. To maintain the safety distance measures in the case of not having large enough classrooms, the group of students is divided into two subgroups. Half of the group is in a classroom with a teacher, while the other half is in an adjoining classroom watching the class by live video conference. The advantage of this typology compared to hybrid education, in which half of the students follow the class from home, or compared to a blended education in which face-to-face education is alternated with online teaching, is that in mirror rooms the students do not depend on their resources or the connection in their homes, since the entire process is carried out in the educational center, including the online part. They have their classmates in class for support and motivation and are able to continue enjoying contact with classmates and a university environment. The drawbacks of this type of methodology are the need to have enough classrooms, in addition to the technical resources necessary to broadcast the class live and personnel who can control these mirror classrooms. Another disadvantage supposes the students do not have any engagement directly with the professor, who will be standing in another classroom, being a similar situation to that in asynchronous online classes. In university studies, this methodology may be feasible, but not so much in other educational stages, in which it will not be easy for students to be alone in a class and pay attention. So, finally, what about my conclusions? The pandemic, teaching methodologies and the teaching infrastructures. The pandemic has modified the vital context in which study plans are implemented for two reasons. First, the use of the new platforms has been necessary, considering that the circumstances that have arisen require different methodologies from those used when the curriculum was originally designed. Second, both the knowledge and the professional competencies required to implement these methodologies are in the spotlight, requiring the training of professionals and students. Presence learning involves contact with the students, the elimination of technical difficulties, equal resources for all students, and all the elimination of potential family conciliation problems for both teachers and students. On the other hand, it has disadvantages: the time needed to travel to the location of the class and the impossibility of the connecting with students who live far from the educational center or even abroad. Online classes are increasingly being held at prestigious international universities in Asia, America, and Europe, in which any subject can be carried out without face-to-face contact. The case of virtual teaching allows for more flexibility for learners who live in distant areas, but also for teachers from different parts of the world. The platform used to broadcast classes live for the emergency remote educational, 100% online or blended teaching. The benefits of blended educational are for professors and students. With the potentiality of connection through the internet, new learning possibilities arise, with added resources that help towards comfort, accessibility, effectiveness, and more options to access education. Classes in hybrid mode allow for optimization of the use of academic resources and grant control of the capacity and social distance, as there are fewer people in the classroom, such that the social distancing measures imposed by the state can be better complied with. In the case of mirror classrooms, they overcome many of the difficulties that the digital divide can cause. One of the direct consequences of the pandemic has been the need for more teachers and students to modify teaching methodologies. During the periods in which the cumulative incidence of COVID-19 was at very high levels, it was necessary to engage in distance education or blended education, and teachers had to quickly adjust to these changes. This adaptation has meant a great enrichment of their knowledge in new didactic resources to teach their classes. Thanks to training during the distance education and blended education classes, face-to-face teachers have learned new skills. As a result of the arrangement of their knowledge in new didactic resources, innovation in teaching methodologies, and the ICT knowledge of teachers improved thanks to the pandemic. The literature highlights deficiencies in the transition from face-to-face teaching to online teaching due to the weakness of the online teaching infrastructure, the inexperience of teachers, the digital divide, a complex home environment, and so on. However, the advances produced in the use of educational technology to support remote learning since the pandemic became a reality. The force to use this technology and the large-scale advances in distance and online education during the pandemic compel us to face an unprecedented technological revolution and take advantage of it. It's important to highlight the fact that if the pandemic had not had this impact on education, the use of the technological evolution in educational environments might not have evolved so quickly in the last few months. My research provides new perspective on a category of teaching education in the age of COVID-19. Learning can be carried out in an efficient, high quality, and satisfactory manner either through methods we choose or through methods to which the context forces us to adapt. We must choose a modality without affecting the education. That is all from my side. One more time, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you found the presentation interesting. Kind regards and see you on next time. Bye bye.